In this episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the fifth episode in Daredevil Born Again, Season 2, titled The Grand Design. So, let's get into the grand design. The grand design was a phrase uttered by both Daredevil and Vanessa throughout this episode, by Daredevil at the beginning and Vanessa at the end. And spoiler alert, Vanessa is gone. Okay, Vanessa is truly gone this time. No more fake comeback stories like this episode was originally going to be with well, not initially, but it seemed like she was going to make it out of this episode and make it out of the series. But this show has real stakes. Foggy Nelson from the original show dead. Vanessa dead. Who's next? Is it Karen? I can't say. Is Karen get replaced by Jessica Jones? Ever the cameo everyone's waiting for? By the way, we don't need these cameos. We'll talk about the cameos this episode. But we don't need these people begging in the comments of TV time for Jessica Jones. And if I don't see Jessica Jones, I'm going to lose it. The show's called Daredevil, guys. Daredevil Born Again, not Jessica Jones Born Again. And maybe this is like the only way for her to get back into the MCU. But she's on the way, and there's only 3 episodes left. So it's going to be very Jessica Jones focused in the last 3 episodes. So people who are, looking for Jessica Jones, wait your turn. I queued up this episode tonight. I forgot that Jessica Jones is even going to be in the show until after. All the fans are like, "Oh, where's Jessica Jones? Come on, guys. Let's be humble for what we got. We got good television going on right now." So to start this episode out, of course, we've had probably a little bit more characters in this season and like a lot of stories going on that I would actually really like for to be happening, but we roll with the punches and we take what we can get. So starting with BB once again just scheming on Daniel. And this time, obviously, Vanessa is in the hospital from last episode. She's in critical condition, and I thought she pushed way too hard to get the answer from Daniel here of whether she's alive, how she's doing, because the press doesn't know. So I thought this was a very weird attempt by her to just get this, like, seemingly, I guess, to get the first story, get the first scoop. I don't know if that's really Vanessa Fisk is in critical condition. Like, think about right now if the mayor of, oh, I guess it's the mayor of New York City, so it's different. But I don't think it would be that important of a story that you have to go and scheme on your friend again and again and again. I think she's literally just using Daniel at this point. I've been saying that for the past couple weeks, and it's sad to see because I like Daniel, but Daniel is getting outplayed, outclassed, and I like BB too. But like, the brother's got to get it together. Of course, he immediately folds and initially he holds strong, where he's like, I can't tell you, and then he just breaks down, gives her a hug, and tells her right away. It's like, you got played again, and she's gonna be the one to leak it to the press. He puts this together later on, and we have a whole Daniel side plot going on with this story, which I think overall in the grand scheme of this specific episode, I'm not sure if we needed this full fledged out Daniel storyline, but it is what it is. So, who you know, going into this episode, we knew Foggy Nelson was on set at some point, but I was didn't remember. I don't remember any of this stuff that because it always happens like a year before. It's like, oh, Foggy Nelson was on set for season 2 of Daredevil, and then it actually happens. I'm like, oh, I didn't even remember that was supposed to happen. But here he is back in the flesh, Foggy Nelson, who only had like 10 minutes of screen time in the first episode of being alive, or in the first season of being alive. We get him back, and this is a classic Foggy and Matt episode. I think this was more of a throwback episode than a modern. I think there's more of throwback scenes than actual like modern scenes, or it's probably 50-50, but Foggy is back and he's in full form. It was great to see Foggy back, and him and Matt are working on a case where, ironically, they go to find this person, and it's someone that Foggy used to be very close with in some capacity, where this person calls Foggy the Fembot, which is just, I get that was pretty funny to just have that as a nickname. I don't know, but basically they have a moral quandary that they're gonna have to get to by the end of this episode. But we'll get into that a little bit later. And not only do we have a Foggy cameo, Wesley is back. That was not on my bingo card at all. If you could give me 25 answers, I would not say Wesley would be back in season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. But let's go, because I loved Wesley in the first season of Netflix's Daredevil. So I was really confused. Did I go back a couple seasons on accident? Am I watching the pilot of Daredevil? Which I will say, if I ever were to ever rewatch a series, it'd probably be Daredevil on Netflix because I need to like just watch that again. But I probably won't because I don't like rewatching stuff. Anyways, I was really confused with the Wesley cameo. Fisk is asking about Bitcoin. That just made me laugh out loud. I don't know why. And it's so hard always to keep track of what year is it in this show and what year is in this movie with the MCU. It's like 2025 is Infinity War and blah blah blah. Who the fuck knows? But that was funny that he was asking about it. Could have been even more rich, Fisk, if he invested in Bitcoin. Maybe he did invest in Bitcoin. That's why he's got so much money. But Wesley's back to help basically just assist Fisk with some things throughout this episode. Another storyline we have going on is Matt and Bullseye. So obviously Bullseye made the big play last week to try and kill Vanessa, and ultimately will be the one to kill Vanessa with that fallout from the diamond in her head. But Matt actually was able to save him, and they're together. Where I think last episode we saw them run off kind of separately, but Matt just tracks him down because he's assuming that now that he was there, Daredevil was there, Fisk is going to want both of them in custody or dead. Well, he wants them technically alive, as he tells Chief Commander Powell of the task force, but they're going to be tortured and they're going to eventually die to his rage if Vanessa dies, and Matt knows that, so he wants to keep Bullseye alive. But Bullseye's kind of giving it to him this episode. This kind of gives me, now that I'm thinking about it, a little bit of parallel between the Punisher and Daredevil's like first couple meetings together, where they were like trying to figure each other out. And Bullseye's kind of getting Matt for his methodology of not killing people. He says, first you try to kill me, which was the uncharacteristic throwing him off the roof, and then he says, then you try to save me, and I'm the one who needs help. Where it almost seems like Bullseye has come to peace with his own code, and he's just shitting on Matt's code because Matt's code is kind of weird in parts. But good back and forth from these two guys throughout the episode. Bullseye has been a very great addition to the show this season, and obviously a standout episode last week. Pretty good episode out of this week from Bullseye as well. So back to the Foggy and Matt case. So that basically this guy, they find an error in the warrant searching for him, and they are working for a firm at this point. This is very early on in their law careers, where they have a boss named Chad Levine or something. I don't remember this part of the show, if it was even on there, but basically Foggy's like, we can get this guy off and like make names for ourselves, and they have an allowance of like $20,000 almost, I think, or it's either 2,000 or 20,000. Obviously very different numbers, but they Foggy wants to use the error in the warrant to let this guy go, and Matt's saying, let's just ignore it and let this ride. And the whole thematical thing we're supposed to take away from this episode is mercy, where Foggy is trying to have mercy for his former friend, even though the guy was a piece of shit to him and bullied him. It's kind of a weird arc for Foggy to go on, but I guess that's kind of just his character of always trying to do the nice thing and do the right thing. So it could be another chance for him to have mercy for people and, give the guy another chance in the world. Matt's like, don't do that. And then essentially, we'll just wrap up that storyline now. Foggy goes to his place. They obviously let him go. And not only that, Foggy brings him the money that they saved up and says, go disappear, and actually saves him from Buck, who we get Buck's origin story in this one, where he was hired by Fist to go take out this guy that they're helping in the case. Buck's not able to get him because they gave him the money to get out. So, I don't agree with the decision by Foggy, especially with the money part, but you follow your moral code, buddy. And, it seems like in this show, everyone's got their own little weird moral code that they follow, and that's just that. So it is what it is on that end. Mercy has been shown to this individual. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Vanessa looks like she's going to be all right, which I was saying early on in this episode. Like, I was just like, okay, so they faked a death, which would be annoying because, I don't know, if you're going to kill somebody, just kill them. We don't need like oh, is she alive? Is she not? I thought she was just straight dead from the end of last week's episode, but what do I know? She gets to live and come back and shake hands with Kingpin and be healthy and drink pineapple juice. But yeah, we'll see about that. But I was kind of frustrated at that point in the episode. Was like, really, they're just gonna let her live? Like, and it would be cool. I don't wish death upon anybody, but it would be cool to see Wilson Fisk enraged and see how that takes precedence over everything. I'm sure we'll find out in the next couple weeks. Will just be batshit. But Vanessa looks to be all right, and there's a huge. I have to say, I didn't love the Vanessa and Kingpin scenes of them having their origin story and all that stuff. I get it's Vanessa's like swan song, but like there really wasn't much there. They're on a beach. Basically, it's just Fisk driving around in a car with Wesley and her putting up a piece of art. Could have done without that. I don't know, but you know, shout out to Vanessa, R.I.P. This is her last episode, so I'm not going to complain too much. Buck's driving with Daniel now. I have to say this season has been a very, very bad look for Daniel, where they drive to a cabin. Buck brings out like a nail gun and a shovel, and he's talking about like you need to be more careful and all this stuff. Bro, Daniel, and he starts up the car. He doesn't leave. He just takes Buck with him. If you know this is your death, at least try and make an escape attempt. Like Daniel fully thinks he's dying, and he drives all the way to the middle of the woods. Like, dude, I guess there's like a 50-50 chance at this point, but like, hello, let's go. You're about to maybe potentially die. I would just leave and say like, oh, somebody called me or something. See, it's that easy, but I don't know. I guess he's proved loyalty through wanting to be shot for his crimes against the Fisk crime syndicate. Like, geez, man, I don't know. It's very weird. I knew it was probably gonna be a fake out because who just drives them and someone else to the middle of the woods? Even, well, I guess technically, spoiler alert for Sopranos, Adriana did that, but I don't know. Thought it was gonna be a fake out. We get Buck's origin story joining the crew, like I mentioned before. Kind of yada yada through that. Not really much going on there. He's connected through Wesley, which makes sense of how he's kind of just usurped Wesley's role now. And then we get to the back of the car reveal where no, Buck isn't going to kill Daniel. He's just going to bury a body. And I've had a really hard time tracking who BB is. Like when it was revealed that she was the one behind the Fisk mask, the fake Fisk mask, doing those news reports, I was like, is that her? And then now they pull up in the car trunk. I was like, is that her? Like I don't know. And it's just the Polish guy or the whatever the national guy from the Northern Star that they're burying from last week. Like that did not look like that person to me, but maybe I got to pay closer attention to get my eyes updated. I know, my right eye is not, I have astigmatism, so maybe that's, yeah, I was very confused. I was like, did they just kill BB off screen? Which I guess wouldn't make a lot of sense, but it's just the guy that Buck had killed last week, the Northern Star second in command or captain, that they found that he was running his errand when he was supposed to be protecting Fisk and Vanessa. But, they let him go. No egg on his face. So, wrapping up this episode, we have the real true swan song for Vanessa where she comes back, and then once she came back and was like talking normally, I was like, all right, she's probably cooked because yeah, you don't just come back that fast. And there's like a little side story with the surgeon. He might be dead because he's like, yeah, we're running this like really risky surgery, but I think it went pretty well. Spoiler, it did not go pretty well, bro. And Vanessa wakes up, is seemingly fine, and then kind of just dies. She tries to tell Wilson, tell me a story, tell me a story. He tells her the story of how they met, and then, that's it for her. We see Fisk just sad right now. I think the rage will come later. But a very emotional episode between the two. I have to say, I didn't love those scenes, but I can respect it. It's Fisk and Vanessa one last time. So I thought that was interesting to end that out. And Vanessa is dead for real. So what does this mean? I think this means Kingpin is going to be unlocked and unleashed, bro. I think we better watch the hell out if we're being for real on this next couple episodes. And maybe that's why they need to call in the favors and get your Jessica Jones people out there, because it might be time. We might need all the Avengers to take down Kingpin in New York City. So yeah, that's what we leave off episode 5. Probably not my favorite. I think last week's episode is definitely better, but this is definitely just another solid episode. Like there's people complaining about this season, which I guess, that's the cool thing to do nowadays, is just people complain about everything. But this episode had interesting parts to it. Yeah, there were some parts that I didn't love that much, but overall it's still Daredevil. And, I was watching a YouTube video, shout out to whoever this guy was. He was doing like the original What Would Happen in Daredevil, and you know, it was not looking good for Daredevil Born Again. So to have this much effort put into it and to be entertained on a week to week basis, that's enough for me. So that's where we leave off with this episode. Got to give my favorite and least favorite. So favorite for this episode, I'm going Foggy. What an episode for Foggy. He gets his mercy, gets to come back. Great cameo. Got his way, and it's good to see Foggy back on screen. I don't know. I don't feel like anybody else popped for me. Least favorite, I'm going Buck. That was very a roundabout way to tell Daniel we're just burying a body, and you scared me that you're going to kill Daniel, even though I think Daniel's acting like an idiot this season. And usually I go Powell on this, but Powell was like in like one scene in this episode. So Buck, sorry, buddy. You get my least favorite for this episode. And that wraps up Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Episode 5. Stay tuned for weekly recaps on Daredevil Born Again, Survivor, movie reviews, sports stuff. You know the drill by now. So make sure to subscribe, like, comment, dislike if you need to. And as always, be ZL.